Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to integrate PayPal payments in your React Node.js application. And this is going to be a crude application, so we're not going to build a complete full stack application. Instead, we're going to focus on the PayPal payment aspect, and just to give you an overview of how to, what components are required to properly integrate PayPal. Okay, so we'll have a simple React application and you have a PayPal button. When you click on it, you will be redirected to the PayPal account where you can make the payment, and once the payment is finished, you will be routed to complete payments route. Alright, so this is what we're going to build. You can find the official developer documentation on this link. Again, I'll leave all the links in the description box, but the documentation is a bit scattered, and if you are a beginner programmer, it might be difficult for you to navigate this document. So I'm going to show you a clean and quick way to implement PayPal. Now, PayPal provides two types of accounts, a merchant account and a personal account. In order to accept payments in your business, you need to have a merchant account. Alright, and once you log into PayPal with your merchant account, go to testing tools, and under sandbox accounts, you will have an option to create sandbox accounts. So by sandbox account, I mean you can create fake accounts with fictitious money that we can use to test out this integration. Alright, and here we need to create two accounts, one business account, as in one merchant account, and one personal account. Alright, let's create that. So first I'm going to create a personal account. Just hit create account, and then I'm going to create a merchant account, business account. You can call it business account or merchant account, and hit on create account. So we'll use these top two accounts to illustrate this demo. Alright, after you create the two accounts, go to the business account, and here you will have an email address and password. Inside the business account, you need to create an application. So this application is where we will redirect all the payments to. So it's like a logical grouping to capture all your payments. I'm going to create an app called T-Rex and hit create app. So after you create the application, you get a client ID and the secret key, which we're going to use to implement PayPal. Alright, so now that we created a personal account and a merchant account, let's get started with the code. So I'm going to create two folders. First one is the client, and the second one is the server. So server obviously will have the Node.js section of the code, and client we're going to create a React app. Okay, and inside the server, first we're going to quickly initialize a Node.js project. Then I'm going to install the following dependencies: .env to load environment variables, Express to create routes, and GOT to handle PayPal related API calls. Hit enter. After that, I'm also going to install NodeMon as a dev dependency, so that whenever I change the code, the project is automatically restarted, and it just makes it easy for you it just makes the coding experience a lot easier. Just hit enter. That's it. Finally, I'm going to add a script to start the application and change the type to module, because I'm going to use ES6 syntax. That's it. Then I'm going to create a file called server.js. Let's start the server. That's it. Here we can start writing the code. Then I'm going to create .env file with all the environment variables. So I'm going to create an Express server on port 3000, and then we have a few PayPal related environment variables. So when we created the application, we got the client ID and the secret key. So that goes in here, and then we'll have a base URL. And because we are implementing it, we are going to test it on the sandbox server. So here we'll have the sandbox URL, but once you implement and deploy it in the production, you're going to have the production URL over here. Okay, and then you have a redirect base URL, which is the URL of the React app that will build shortly. And that's it. Hit save. Then in the server.js file, create a simple Express server, hit save, and you have an Express server running on port 3000. Before we add the PayPal routes, let's create the React application. So I'm going to create a new terminal on VS Code and go to client, and I'm going to use Vite as the build tool for the React app. So create a simple React app with the command npm create Vite @latest. Hit enter. I'm going to call it T-Rex. Hit enter. It's going to be a React app, JavaScript. That's it. CD into the app, CD into the T-Rex folder, and then first install all the dependencies. then in the read config file, add a new option for the server. We're going to default the server to port 5173 and also route all the routes with the PayPal path to the server. Alright, let's hit save. And then we're going to install two dependencies. One to handle PayPal payments, and this is the official package that is used on the PayPal official documentation. And then we're also going to install React Router DOM to route between different pages. Hit enter. That's it. We installed all the dependencies. You can start the React app with the command npm run dev. If you open the React app in the browser, you will see the default Vite React UI. First, I'm going to clean up all the existing code because we're going to start from scratch. So in the index.html file, I'll change the title to PayPal demo. Then I'm going to delete the index.css file. And I also don't need the app.css file. And in the app.jsx, I'm just going to have a simple div. I'll delete all the unwanted code, also the state, hit save. And if I go to the page, looks like I still have some CSS somewhere. Yeah, I just need to get rid of this index.css, and if you go to the page, alright, that looks good. Before we build the routes, let's look at the flowchart as to how we're going to structure this whole thing. So we have four key components. One is the React application, which is app client, and then our Node.js server, which is the app server, and then we have the PayPal server. Alright. We also have Redis, but we're not going to use Redis in today's example, but I'll show you where Redis comes into picture. So on the app client, the user initiates a payment, and that request is sent to the app server through an API call. And on the app server, we're going to initiate a payment through PayPal server and send the URL back to the client. Alright. And then the user is redirected to the PayPal server where the user may complete the payment or cancel the payment. And once that is finished, the details are sent back to the client, and then we send the same information back to the app server where we'll validate the payment and then take necessary action on the user account. So after the payment is complete, you might want to upgrade the user to a pro subscription, right? So you take all the steps and then you return the user back to the client where we show whether the payment is successful or failure. So this is how the whole thing is going to work. All of this is going to make sense once we started in the code, but I wanted to give you an overview as to how everything will be structured so that it's easy for you to follow along. Alright. On the server, I'm going to create a folder called routes, and inside the routes, I'm going to create a file called paypal.js. Here, I'm going to implement the default router, and all the payment related routes are going to be implemented here. And on the server.js file, let's first import this module and then route all the routes that we receive on the PayPal path to this PayPal routes file. Let's hit save. Now let's implement the PayPal routes. Now inside the paypal.js file, first let's import GOT module to make API calls, and then we're going to implement a function called getAccessToken. So whenever you make an API call to the PayPal server, you need to pass the access token. So we're going to create a function to retrieve that access token. So you can retrieve that by making a post request to OAuth 2 token path, and we need to pass the client ID and the secret key that we got when we created the application, which is already in the .env file. Alright. And for now, let's just console log the response and see what is in the response. And we'll also return the access token from this function. Let's hit save. Then let's create a route to create order as create order. Inside this create order function, let's get the access token. And for now, we'll just return the response as order created successfully. I want to see what's inside the access token response. Let's hit save. And when you test it, when you make an API call to the create order path, you see this message that order is created successfully. But if you go to console, you will see this data that is logged to the console. So if you take a look at that data, so whenever you retrieve access token with the PayPal API, you also get expire in field. That means this token is valid for this duration. So what you can do is you can cache the access token and reuse it on subsequent calls so that you're not constantly hitting the PayPal server. So yeah, if you were to have Redis in your application, as most applications do, you can cache this value and set the expiry to this value, this duration, and then you can keep reusing the access token for this duration. But in this demonstration, we're going to not use Redis. Now, inside the create order function, we need to make an API call, a post request to check out orders path to create a new order. And we're going to pass the access token in the header in this format. And we're also going to pass a body to that API. So inside the body, we're going to provide different options as to how the PayPal transaction should occur. So we mentioned that immediate payment required, as in the user needs to make the payment immediately, and we can specify the selected method as in PayPal. I'll leave a link to the documentation where you'll find more details about all the different options, and you can also specify the brand name. For now, I'm just going to leave something like DK Hub and Wallet Integrate and whatnot. And because this is a digital product, I'm going to set shipping preference as no shipping, but obviously this could be different for your application. Okay, and then most importantly, we need to specify the return URL and cancel URL. So in a React app, we're going to create two different pages, one for complete payment and another for cancel payment. So we'll specify those two over here. All right. And now let's look at how to fill the cart. So inside the JSON, along with payment source, we need to set intent as capture, and we need to specify the purchase unit. So inside purchase units is how we specify the cart details, like what is added to the cart and quantity and price and all the details. So inside the purchase unit, we're going to pass items, which is an array, and we'll specify the details of the cart. So name of the item, description, quantity, just one, and the currency. And for now, I'm just setting the cart value to $50. And we also need to pass the amount with the same details. So currency is USD and the value of the card is $50. All right. And after we do that, for now, let's just console log the body and let's take a look at the response. All right, let's hit save. And as always, let's make another API call to the same path. And for now, let's just disable the access token related logs. Let's make the call again. And this is what you see in the response. So you have an order ID, the payment status, and all the other steps. So we need to return the payment ID to the client to be able to redirect the user to the PayPal site. Okay. So inside the route, once we make the API call, we're going to capture the order ID from the request response body, and then we're going to pass the order ID as a response. That's it. Let's hit save. Now we have a create order path, and whenever we make an API call to the create order path, we are initiating a payment and returning the order ID back to the client. Now let's go ahead and implement this route on the client side. So in the client, I'm going to create a new folder inside the source called pages, and inside pages, I'm going to create two pages, cancel payment and complete payment. So again, it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm just adding in some JSX to indicate the payment is complete and when the payment is cancelled. All right. And then I'm going to create a new folder called components. Inside the components, I'm going to create a file called PayPal payment.jsx. And inside this file, we will implement all the payment related. And in the main app.jsx file, let's replace the existing code with the new one. So we imported the PayPal payment, complete payment, and cancel payment, and we added the routes over here. So whenever we are on the default path, we show the PayPal payment module. And if you're on the complete payment path, we show the complete payment route, and cancel payment, we show the cancel payment route. That's it. So when we start the application, we'll be on the PayPal payment component, and once the payment is complete, the user will be redirected to the complete payment component. Okay. Now let's work on the PayPal payment module. So this is where we'll handle all the PayPal related code. So this is the most crucial component in this demo. So first, let's create a default functional component, and I'm going to import the PayPal script provider and PayPal buttons from the PayPal React module that we just installed. Then we need to wrap the PayPal buttons with the PayPal script provider, and we're going to pass some options to these components. Starting with initial options, we need to pass the client ID as initial option, and we're going to load client ID as an environment variable. So let's create the file. I'm going to create .env.development, and make sure your environment variable starts with wheat underscore, otherwise wheat may not be able to detect the environment variable, and hit save. So that is how we pass the client ID to the initial options. And next we need to define the styles. PayPal supports a lot of different styles, but for the demonstration purpose, I'm going to set it as rectangle in the vertical layout, and that's what we pass as styles. Now we need to define a few other functions, which is create order, on approve, and on error. Okay, and funding source, you can leave it. It's an optional setting. Again, there are different funding sources. You can read through the documentations like PayPal, Pay Later, Venmo, or credit card. So if you want to restrict on the medium of payment, you can use this option. Otherwise, you can just leave it. Now, first let's create the on create order function. So inside the on create order function, we're going to call the PayPal create order function that we just created on the server, and then we're going to get the response and return the order ID. So once we return the order ID, you will automatically be redirected to the PayPal server to make the payment. Then let's create the on approve function, and we'll define this function later. For now, we'll just leave it like that. And finally, we'll define the on error function, and whenever there's an error, we just redirect the user to the cancel payment route. Let's hit save. Let's go back to the page, hit refresh. You should see PayPal demo, alright? I would love to see something above these buttons. So I just added some more markup so that you have some information above these buttons related to the product that you want to offer. So that's it. So this is how you see the buttons, and if you refresh the page, you get different options. Speaking of options, like I mentioned earlier, if you want to restrict the funding source to only PayPal, you can do it with this option, and if you hit save and refresh, you will only see the PayPal option. But if I delete this, you will see both PayPal and credit card options. And when you click on PayPal, you will see that you're automatically redirected to the PayPal account. Okay, so you need to log in with the personal account that we first created. So let's log in. You can go back to the merchant account, and under the sandbox accounts that we just created, go to the personal account, and you can get the email address and password from here. Just copy the email address, paste it here, and copy the password, and also paste the password. Let's log in. As you can see, the card is populated as per the details we mentioned in the create order route. And if you click on the price, you will see the details of your cart that we added volatility grid, and the total amount is around $50. So after you hit complete purchase, you will be redirected back to the page. The on approve function is going to get executed. So let's implement the on approve function now. So to implement the on approve function, we need to create another route on the server, which is to capture the payment. Okay, and it's going to be a get request. Inside this capture payment route, we're going to pass the payment ID as a parameter, and as always, first we're going to retrieve the access token, and then we're going to destructure the payment ID from the params, and then we're going to make a post request to check out orders capture to be able to get the information about the order, and then we're going to get the payment data. And for now, let's just console log the payment data. Alright, let's see what is inside the payment data. Let's hit save. Then we're going to go back to the PayPal payments module on the client side, and inside the on approve function, first we're going to check if we have the order ID, and then we're going to call the same API that we just created by passing the order ID as a parameter. Okay, and if the payment is successful on the client side, you will see the order ID, and that is taken care by React PayPal module. Okay, and then after it is successful, we're just going to redirect the user to complete payment route. Let's hit save, and let's make another payment. Let's hit refresh, hit PayPal payment. Alright, let's complete the payment. This is still loading because we're not returning anything from the response, so we'll fix this in a few minutes. But for now, let's just look at what's inside the payment data response. So as you can see, we have an ID, the status is completed, and then we have some more information regarding the payment. And what you would do is, once the payment information is validated, you want to take some action on the user account. So if you are upgrading the user from a free account to pro account, this is where you would perform that action. Okay, so inside the route, I'm just going to delete the console log code, and then we'll first check if the payment status is completed, and then if not, we're going to send an error that the payment is incomplete. And if it is completed, then again, this is just a demonstration, so we're not performing anything, but I want to show you what kind of actions you can take. So let's say you have a user ID and we want to extend the pro account till 30 days. So you would define those values and then set that in the database somewhere. Okay, and then you're going to return a response that it's the payment verification is successful with the new user details. Okay, let's hit save. Now let's go back to the page, and do the payment again. So now that we are sending a response from the capture payment route, it should work properly. So let's hit PayPal. Let's make the payment. Perfect. So you can see after the payment is successful, you are routed to the complete payment. So that's it. So that is how you integrate PayPal in your React and Node.js application.